Our only job, or our most important one at least, is to make this feel good. It's to keep yourself blissful. And that might sound selfish in a way. It's just about focusing on keeping your body feeling good. But the rest kind of does itself if you focus on that. You see, our minds can't really hold that many things at once, especially not in the way they are, in the way that our minds are so impaired in the default state of consciousness. We can't really keep our mind on many things, and definitely not for long periods of time. So, you want to get from A to B. A is like default consciousness in the earth today, prone to stress, prone to feeling dissatisfied, prone to craving, prone to not really being present and here, letting the years just slip by, feeling fear, stress, worry, boredom, dissatisfaction, and craving much more than you feel love and peace and fulfillment and wholeness and love. We're meant to feel those things. It is possible to live a blissful life where you are blissful all of the time. Buddhism isn't lying. There is a way to end suffering. They called it the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path. And if I had to summarize that, it would be living ethically, cultivating wisdom and insight, and establishing discipline over the mind. The yogic process, from ignorance to enlightenment, from bondage to liberation. It's the same thing. It's all about calming the monkey mind, ending the automatic flow, the karma, the compulsiveness, the automatic behaviors, the automatic thinking, the automatic identifying with thoughts, the automatic craving and desiring, and ego. Ego is like our sense of identity that is tied to all of our karmas. The yogic process is one where you stop identifying with the ego altogether. It dissolves because it is only kept alive and generated by our constant investment of energy into it, believing that we are it. You realize you're using a laptop and that using the laptop isn't working, so the laptop just closes and you're back in reality. The laptop being your body, mind, system, karma, ego, identity, whatever. So there's certain practices that dissolve the attachments that simply dissolve attachments. It's kind of a general way to describe it. Ego is entirely just a collection of attachments. Attachments, that which is familiar, that which we can predict, that which we're sentimental of. There's a way to dissolve that. And then what's left is just awareness or God. How do you dissolve it? Well, you need to do it willingly. The ego kind of needs to hand over the keys willingly. So you as the ego typically needs to suffer immensely over and over and over and over again, and the process is gradual. You surrender and then you stop surrendering and you go back to automatic living, thinking that that's your free will. Like, I want the freedom to live the way I want to live, and I want to be in control of my life, and I want to do this, this, and that. And you think it's freedom, but it's actually bondage, because it's not you. You're falling back into the maze of self, the maze of ego. You think it's freedom, but it's bondage. And what you think is bondage, what you think is imprisonment, is freedom. You know? Like if you walked up to the random person and you were like, you have to quit all of these things, anything you're attached to, stop doing them, and renounce those attachments and kind of let go of everything. Do this and that, and then just try and like spend a lot of the time doing nothing. It's like you basically it's like you're describing prison to people. you know but like when you're ready for the process, you realize it's the only thing left to do. It's the only sane thing to do. You look around at the suffering of the world and you look at your own tendency to suffer, and you just like you see the suffering of others and you're just like, how can I help? How can I help? And then you look at yourself and you're like, well, I'm a fucking disaster. I can't fucking help anyone. And then you're like, okay, well, there we start then. Okay, let's make us good. Everyone's on fire screaming, but I'm also on fire screaming. Let's try and figure out how we extinguish this fire. Let's get us good, Like when the plane crashes, they say put the mask on yourself first and then attend to other people. Okay, so my heart's breaking at the state of suffering in the world. I wish I could help reduce it. But the first step is right here. You tend to the part of the garden that you can touch. And how does that look? How do we make this good? We figure out what's making it bad. Why am I stressed? Why don't I feel bliss right now? Like, that's the question. It's not like, why in general in life am I unfulfilled? Well, it's because my ex did this and like I failed to do that, and then these influences led me down this path and that's just led me up. No, it's shut up. That's the story. None of it's real. None of it's just forget it. Yeah, it's karma. It's memory. That's what it is. It's the source of your bondage. No, why aren't you blissful right now? Like this second. This is all there is, technically. There's nothing that exists outside of the experience of now, right now. Reality can be defined as sensations arising and passing away. It's experience now. If you're thinking of the past, it's a memory that you're experiencing in the now. If you imagine the future, you're doing it now. The trance of perpetual mind wandering is one of the biggest obstacles between you and your healing or awakening, however you want to conceptualize it. Healing, awakening, freedom, death. Those are 4 fine ways to describe enlightenment. So, mind wandering. Wandering mind is an unhappy mind. Why am I not blissful right now? Well, probably because I spent the last hour thinking perpetually and feeling and stimulating myself and generally not feeling whole. All of my expressions come from a state of separation. This is why in the Eastern philosophies they describe the process of becoming enlightened as also the process of dissolving the illusion of separation. Enlightenment is perpetual awareness of the fact that you and all are one. That I and the Father are one. I and the Mother are one. Well, gee golly, Aaron, how do you dissolve the illusion of separation and achieve enlightenment so that your personal suffering can dissolve, and therefore you won't have unnecessary suffering, and therefore you'll be in bliss, and you'll be more competent and cut out to be of service to the world and spread healing and awakening and love. Therefore, reducing that thing, suffering. Because these are the two, suffering and love. These are the great motivators, Sure, there's loads of others that motivate the ego. The ego is motivated by like fucking food, sex, power, status, fun, adventure, novelty, memories, pleasure, excitement. But the soul seems to be stirred by love, compassion, kindness, adoration, devotion, love, like love. And it's also motivated by suffering. Suffering's lame and love is cool. This is the language of the soul, okay? Soul wakes up, is like, okay, there are sentient creatures. We're either feeling love, wholeness, and completion, or we're suffering. It would be better if the suffering went away and the love and wholeness, feelings of completeness, they rose. The ego has its own motivations. It wants... Well, the ego is like, it's very tied to the monkey, We're like a soul piloting a monkey. And the soul comes here to do certain things, but the monkey has an automaticity to it. There is like a self, an identity to the ego, to the monkey, but it's not soul, and it's not even like true. It's kind of animated by the spirit of your soul. But there's an automaticity to it, and mechanical aspects to the ego, to the personality. And this automaticity, it's like circuits, wiring, and that was designed for survival. That's why we desire so many things. We desire more food, saltier and sugary. Ideally, more energy the better, because in nature the most sugary thing you'd find was honey, which is jackpot. We also desire sex because that means reproduction, which was a good thing to our genes. Our genes are self-replicating machines. Our body is his vehicle. So then you also desire status. You desire to do things that make people respect you and admire you and give you more value in the dating market. Maybe you want to achieve greatness as well. Maybe that's like a trip that your ego's on, I want to have a legacy. Like, I want to really achieve that greatness. That's a weird one. That's a weird one. The desire for sex and food and power, even. All these can be seen in other animals, even like the closest to us, the primates. But do you, like chimps, have desires for greatness? Do they want to leave a legacy? That's a weird one connected to humanity. Intuitively, I feel like that's something animated in the way the ego's animated by the spirit. I think that whole trip, the desire for greatness trip, I think it's the spirit taken and distorted, because it does come from ego, but I feel like it's one of the later trips that the ego goes on. The desire to really become someone that's, wow, they really went all the way there, didn't they? Yeah, Jesus, masters. Absolute fucking legends, experts, They went further than anyone went in that direction, Like, that seems to be one of the later trips the ego goes on. And I think it's like the soul is desiring, I want to go to the infinite, and the ego still needs to make it about him. So I think the desire from the soul to reach the infinite or divinity or the sacredness or, achieve union with God, that's the definition of yoga. Union and yoga are synonyms. The soul desires to achieve union with God, and the ego still needs it to be about him, because you're still experiencing reality as being the subjective self in the world of other subjective selves, with the past and future and memories, and you're very much in that whole thing. So, the ego needs to kind of integrate the soul's revelations and, the soul's knowledge and that which was experienced in peak states. The ego needs to incorporate that into itself to not, die. So that makes sense as to why one of the last trips the ego goes on is like the desire for excellence or greatness. Because it's the closest thing in the world of relative phenomena that you can get to the experience of God or the sacred. You know, when do you experience greatness? When you're impressed by it. You read a book that just blows your mind. You're like, how did a human being create this? You know, they caught a bit of divinity and they shared it through this book. You know, and then the ego that was responsible for bringing that into the world, bringing that book, bringing that divinity, they are given this high level of status, or like they've achieved greatness. You know, that's the thing. It's also seen with music. You know, like how did Mac Miller make Circles? How did he make that album? What the fuck, you know? Wow, achieved greatness. You know? Their individual egos or identities are now associated with something that people experience as a expression of the divine, as something holy beyond this world. So yeah, it makes sense. The ego's last desire is for greatness. But greatness is always reached not through the pursuit of greatness or excellence. It's always an accident. It's like a byproduct. Maybe the ego sometimes was experiencing it, but like when I think of Mac, like yeah, he was on this trip. He wanted to be like an amazing artist. He really had that, you know, long-term great vision from a young age. He was just having fun rapping maybe when he was 18, but you can see it in some of his earlier albums. As he starts dabbling with psychedelics more as well, he has this longing for greatness. But as the time goes by and he experiences suffering more, and he's humbled by pain, and you know, it becomes less to him about this like, I'm gonna be the shit, and then it's like much more reflective, much more introspective. He's much less kind of like, I want to make the world love me, and then he's kind of like, you know, he more so feels like he's trying to love the world and love himself by the end of his discography. So, the soul sees the world as suffering and love. The ego wants a whole load of other things. How then do we connect to God and dissolve the ego so we can be less selfish and misguided? We can cause less unnecessary suffering for ourselves. We can help others reduce suffering, and in the process, since we're now free of suffering, We don't just become robots, we become blissful, loving creatures, emanations of God. How do we do that? Well, good for us. It's been written down like 1,000 times. And for me to get closer to that goal, I have had to read it 1,000 times. So with your limited time and attention, maybe make that your plan of action. Read things that make me remember this is the story, this is the truth. Buddhism calls this the Dharma, the truth. Fill your mind up with this righteous, loving, wholesome, holy, divine truth. How do you do that? You read amazing books. Autobiography of a Yogi, The Power of Now, A New Earth, Letting Go, David Hawkins, the Bhagavad Gita, Be Here Now, Miracle of Love. The Journey Home, Autobiography of an American Swami, The Holy Science, The Mind Illuminated, TWIM, Tranquil Wisdom, Insight, Meditation, The Master Key, Biology of Belief, Becoming Supernatural, You Are the Placebo, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. You read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. You read the Upanishads. You read some Thich Nhat Hanh. You read some Jed McKenna. You read some Rudolf Steiner, and then you go over there and you read some Krishnamurti, and then you read a little bit of Osho, then you read some Sadhguru, and then you repeat that process, bouncing between these individuals and their ideas, and you just totally permeate the fields of your mind with seeds that will one day grow. And then you are permanently reminded in your inner landscape. Because we're dreaming and we need to wake up, okay? We're living in ego, that is the dreaming. We are totally identified with the flow of thoughts and daydream our beliefs. We're in this whole false reality that we're hallucinating ourselves. So the truth is basically stop looking at that, stop identifying with it. There's a bigger thing, zoom out. Stop identifying with it. There's a bigger thing, zoom out. But you're kind of stuck in this landscape and you wake up for a bit, but then you end up back there. There's something addictive about it. There's like a gravitational pull. And the process of completely leaving it is a kind of process of death that you resist in any way possible. So you're in this landscape. Let's imagine it's literally fields of grass, your inner fields, your inner landscapes. You want to plant seeds that will grow flowers that are in and of themselves symbols for leaving this place. Or imagine it as like placing on signposts or billboards and writing on them, this. When you're reading all those books and you're taking in that idea over and over again, the core essence that all these people tell you, Eckhart Tolle, Osho, Sadhguru, Krishnamurti, they're all saying a very similar thing. You are dreaming, it's causing suffering. Wake up, it will be blissful. So yeah, that prison, that inner landscape that you can't stop tripping in, that you can't stop getting transfixed by, hypnotized by, you fill that world with signposts saying, hey, this place is but a dream, wake up. Place is but a dream, wake up. And everywhere you look, there's this place is but a dream, wake up. And that helps with the process. A lot of, Hinduism, Buddhism, they promote learning the Dharma. learning the truth. Zen Buddhism, interestingly, doesn't place value on this. Perhaps it's seen the ego's tendency to just create an identity around these signposts, an enlightened identity, an enlightened ego, a spiritual ego. Maybe it's seen that and said, fuck that, we can bypass that. We can bypass that obstacle altogether by leaving all the Dharma out, all the knowledge, all the theory, all the philosophy, all the poetry, all the autobiographies, all the scripture, and we just do practice, hardcore practice. I didn't find that was my path, because that relies entirely on discipline. And then you forget why you're doing something so difficult. And you haven't baked into your being all this knowledge and ideas. You haven't shaped your identity around yoga. Well, then it's so easy to stop practicing. I think filling your mind with the truth is useful. And then formal practice that Zen is entirely focused with. That's the way out. Ultimately, as well, nothing else is needed if you just did Zen. If you just did the practice, if you just meditated, if you just paid attention, it would be sufficient. But it's the easiest and hardest thing that'll ever be done, you know? So, what must be done? We must cease mind wandering, which means we don't identify and attach to thoughts. We remain the witness of them, and we watch them come into reality and leave reality, and we're not altered by it. You know, we are the witness. We are the sky that the clouds float through. We don't become the clouds. You know, we're the space that activity on Earth occurs in. We're not the activity. You know, we are the wave, not the particle. I don't know. That kind of thing, you know, you're meant to be zoomed out. How do we do that? We need to let go of attachments, because that's what keeps us in reality, keeps us doing shit, keeps us stimulating ourselves. And we need to, initially the step one is suffering, because boredom is suffering, and oftentimes we're in a state in reality where we haven't integrated everything. We've got some ugly things under the bed and in the closet, and we're kind of just, we have these circuits we go down that are safe and reliable and familiar, and you know, we got shit that needs to get done, so we can't be rocking the boat, and you know, so we just have these patterns that we rely on. Step one is facing the discomfort of ceasing being the pattern, ceasing activity with the pattern, ceasing perpetual stimulation. Then we go into nothingness. Eventually, the boredom, the discomfort, the unease, the fear, whatever arises, it eventually dissolves, and we're left with bliss and peace, and often religious ecstasy, which is a good crack. There's no come down from that either. It's just good with an afterglow. No come downs from religious highs. But you mustn't get attached to those either. And then, yeah, you just need to make that your only job. You as the doer, you as the ego. What is my job in life? It's not all these things. It's just making this feel good. You know? Do I feel whole and connected to love right now? Am I totally accepting and loving of myself right now? Do I totally accept and love life and those around me? Is there any bit of my heart that is closed off to the world? Is there any bit of me fearing? Is there any of me like resisting anything? You just dissolve, you focus on love, and when your mind starts wandering, it's like a bicep curl. When you drag it back, you say, oh, I've mind wandered, let's move back now. What was I doing? Oh yeah, I was repeating in my mind, loving kindness for myself, loving kindness for the world, loving kindness for myself, loving kindness for the world, loving kindness for myself, loving kindness for the world. And then you pay attention to the sensations on your chest, and you intentionally try and feel love there. You Sort of, maybe you imagine yourself holding, nurturing a baby in your arms that you love so much. This pure, innocent little creature that you just want to cry every time you hold it. You just love it. You'd die for it 100%. You imagine this, holding this child, and you see yourself as that child, and you as God holding yourself, or you just place yourself, just give that level of love to yourself. You are soul and monkey. You have been given temporary residence in this monkey. Your job is to take real good care of it. It's not selfish to love yourself. You're taking care of your monkey. You're meant to really love it in the way you'd love your firstborn. You totally love and accept yourself. You just dissolve in that. And then when you're totally in harmony with yourself, you're your own best friend again. You feel good with yourself. You let go of all of the frustrations. It is so easy to love everyone else. And then you realize, your only job here is to make this feel good. And this, how it behaves in the world, will then be an expression of that level of wholeness and wellness. And therefore those expressions in the world will be expressions of wholeness, and then they will be positive. You will be of help to others. Because think about it. How do we influence people? We can influence them physically, like I can hit someone on the head with a hammer or a baseball bat. I can hug them. But it's also your attention, the quality of attention that you're giving them, and the kind of words that you use to them, and the emotion from which those words come from. These are how you influence others. And if your body's in pain, you're irritable. You get pissy with people. If your mind is fearful and craving, and you feel separate and unwhole, and you're constantly searching for something, and you just don't feel totally blissed out, you act irritable with people. And if you get really bad and your body's in a real state of incoherence and disorder and stress and pain, you can even get aggressive, violent, cruel. And it can go to the extent that we have no words to describe other than demonic or evil. So, when this is fucked up, we go that way, how do we go the other way? If our imprint on the world, our influence on the world is toxic, if our body's in pain, we're more likely to be irritable. Well, if we make our body not in pain and ideally in totally bliss, well, then how we engage with the world and how we interact with the world, it will have a healing effect. It does have a healing effect. You see it with these saints in India, or you see it with the stories of Christ. It was just his presence. People were falling to his feet. It was like, the divine mother, father, manifests in a being, and people are just so relieved, and their hearts open, and it's just love. It's not, I love Christ, so I'm going to dedicate my life to Christ. I'm going to deny thyself and walk with Christ, because I can get some pretty cool shit out of it. I can get some good power and resources out of this. No, it's because love. It's just love. This is why one of the core branches of yoga and Hinduism is bhakti, devotion, love, adoration. So we make this real blissed out, just total harmony. And then when we move through the world, our actions won't be autopilot, ego, compulsive, automatic, leading us to being stressed and overstimulated and stuck in cycles. that make life just not feel very fresh anymore. No, fuck all that. You don't go that way. Compulsiveness is gone. The restlessness of the mind is gone. Your fixation with the activity of the mind is gone. And you have that choice over whether or not you're thinking. When you have the choice over whether or not to think, it kind of feels like you've attained sanity for the first time in your life. Actions don't arise from restlessness or habit. Karma is memory or habit. Karma is memory or habit, which leads to the automaticity of behavior and thought, expression and feeling, So yeah, karma is basically personality. If we consider personality your collections of thoughts, thought cycles, feeling cycles, habits, beliefs, the way you see the world and how you interact with people, let's say that's your personality. Well, that defines your personal reality as well. Your personal sense of reality is entirely defined by your personality. And your personality is made up of thoughts, emotions, habits, beliefs, actions. If those are on autopilot, your reality is no longer in your control. Your reality becomes something that kind of happens to you, that you're forced to just experience. And this is why they call it bondage, the bondage of karma. And it's why they call enlightenment liberation. It's like you attain free will when you no longer automatically identify with thoughts, when you no longer automatically identify with the activity of the mind, then you have attained a higher level of free will. With this free will, you can heal the body and make sure it's in harmony. It's in coherence, it's blissed out, it's healthy. And then actions no longer arise from compulsiveness and restlessness. Instead, actions arise from a state of wholeness, and they're expressions of God. You let go of the wheel, Christ takes the wheel, God acts through you, you channel, whatever you want to call it. Actions sort of arise spontaneously. They're not premeditated and they're not results of memory. They're not results of habit. You're not stuck going around circuits or grooves. You can go wherever you want. And selfish desires linked to the ego, desires linked to survival, they are gone. So you act out the soul's intentions instead. In yoga or Hinduism, there's this metaphor. It's like a way that they describe the yogic process. They say there's like horses and there's a carriage, horses and carriage, and there's a horse rider who's driving the horses, and they're in the carriage, they're sitting the noble, or the lord, we'll call it. So we have how many components to this then? We have 4 components. Let's say 5, because it's not just the driver, but there's the reins as well. So we've got the horses, this is the body, the driver of the horses, it's the ego, the reins, strings, the nerves, the neurons, the nervous system, whatever. It's the way by which the ego influences the body, makes it go where it wants to go. I'm kind of altering it, but let's call the horse carriage the Merkuba, or the spirit, that kind of non-physical body. And let's call the Lord the soul. Well, the default state of consciousness seems to be the horses are totally untrained, unbroken. They'll go, a lot of the time they just don't take any actions. They don't take orders from the ego. So even the ego doesn't really have that much free will. The horse, the rider, like the driver, he's like drunk for some reason. Barely even like in control. Maybe the horses are broken, but he's just such a shit driver that he's just not making things happen the way the ego wants them to happen. The body, the horses, it kind of has a mind of its own, passions and drives and instincts. The ego is kind of influenced by culture and family and religion and ideas, philosophies. But again, he can't really make the body do exactly what he wants it to do. He's drunk, so he can't even make himself do what he wants to do. And therefore suffering happens, and the soul's, the soul is non-physical, inhabiting the spirit body, which encapsulates the ego. And the Lord, the soul doesn't get to... The Lord, how it should function is the Lord should be like, yo, driver, we're going to go here. And the driver's like, okay, this is my job. I'm not the guy that decides where we're going. You're smarter than me. I work for you. I will get these horses under control and we'll go where you think is best. And the Lord, cool, the Lord gets to their destination. And it works out better for the ego and the horses as well. When the horses are unruly and the ego is drunk, the driver's drunk, like the horses get injured, everyone's like nauseous from getting thrown around the place, the car, like everything's getting broken around. When the ego wakes up, stops drinking, surrenders, that's the key word, surrender, be of service. The servant has become the master. We have to get the servant back to the master. We are the servant, we need to surrender, accept that we are not the master. Let the higher self come in. Well, how do you do that? Well, it's not just about the ego, ceasing drinking and surrendering and then saying, okay, Lord, I'll take rules from you, because the ego still can't control the horses. So the ego has two steps. It needs to surrender its will to God, to the Lord, and it also needs to learn how to get on the same team as the horses again. Get the horses calmed down. Get them relaxed. Learn how to communicate with them. So the ego needs to learn how to be in harmony with the body. And the ego also needs to dissolve, itself in a way that relinquishes control, lets go of the wheel, surrenders, so that the body now cooperates with the mind, and the mind is no longer hallucinating. So you are now situated in the position of the witness, which aligns you with soul or higher self. And then if the body is all good and the mind is all good, then the body-mind can be used as a vehicle for the soul to act in the world. That's the process we're trying to do. It's a process of surrendering, and it's a process of discipline.